It's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We're counting down to the end of the year. In 3 days, it will be 2022. Compliments of the season, everyone. It's a little hard to describe 2021. Particularly, I think that each person has a unique experience. But if you measure it based on two yardsticks, let's talk about security and the economy. Then it's not been a very pleasant one in this part of the world. And I can tell you for free that my salary, for instance, had more value last year than it did this year. At some point, I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, "Woman, what's happening here? I mean, what's really happening here?" And she said, "Perhaps you should follow me to the market and find out the current price of things. It's crazy, guys." And that's perhaps some of the things we'll be talking about on the program as we begin to look at the events that shaped 2021. This administration came on the tripod of fighting insecurity, boosting the economy, and also fighting corruption. I'm not sure security has fared better this year than it did last year, and we're going to take a look at some of those events as we begin to count down to 2021. I'm joined by two astute, if you like, call them veteran journalists on the show this morning. Dari Odufowokon, Emeka Madunagu. Gentlemen, good morning, and compliments of the season to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for finding time to come. So let's take a look at a few things that transpired. A good place to start would be insecurity. On the 26th of January, President Buhari did a shake-up in the top military command, and it is the fallout of an outcry that let change the service chiefs. The big question at this time would be, has that truly reflected in an upgrade in security infrastructure, and has it really translated into, better life for people in troubled areas? On 7th February, the banditry in northwest Nigeria kick-started in the new year with 14 people killed in Kaduna. On the 24th of that same month, gunmen killed 36 people, burnt houses in Kaduna and Katsina states. And still in February, on the 26th of February, we heard about the landmark kidnapping of 317 schoolgirls in Zamfara. And it's a story of one kidnapping to the other, particularly in northwestern Nigeria, where the case has gone, really awry. I'd like to begin by finding out, Mr. Madunagu, if this answers the question, because late last year, the pressure was high on Mr. President that perhaps we should change hands, and that would translate into a better situation. Has that really worked?
Well, it has not, because it's just as if same of the same. Nothing has changed, because those other men who were removed, they had actually overstayed. They had gone past their sell-by date. They had overstayed their effectiveness, and they ought to have retired. I mean, when it's time for somebody to let the person retire, so that younger people, fresh brains can come on board. But the president waited until the public clamor was so high at a crescendo before he just, responded. Now, that was not a proper way, in my view, to respond to a national emergency, because it was as if he just did it to score a political point. And so, and how were these men chosen? The same problem, the same slant, the same ethnic slant, that left out some other parts of the country. So you didn't have a sense that, we're doing this, because we wanted to balance the strategy and make sure we can effectively deal with insecurity. And again, you see, one problem that existed before those service chiefs were removed was the lack of cooperation between some of the service chiefs. It was clear that two service chiefs particularly had a all-standing feud which affected operations. And so you now have a multiplicity of intelligence agencies. All the services have one intelligence agency or the other. And so working at cross purposes. And you keep hearing people talking about, people in the know talking about the need for synergy between the security forces. And I don't think that has really been achieved up till this moment. So the issue is, there are also the criminals on the other side who are working with these bandits. People in political offices, some traditional rulers too, who have been indicted, even some people in the security service, ordinary civilians who have been caught taking ammunition, taking food and all of that to these terrorists. And the worst is that, you see, when you are fighting insecurity, you also have to fight the psychological aspect of it. You must push it very hard. And what is the psychological aspect? Tagging these people as bandits, it's for me a no. You just make it look like people just raid farms, steal corn and yam. These people are terrorists, plain. Now, the government has gone to court. After so much public outcry, you've gone to court and got an ex parte order that will expire in 90 days. Take note, in 90 days. And, okay, come out and use that ex parte order. Show us the effective utilization of that ex parte order. Nothing has been done. And then you are saying, no, don't worry, we will deal with insecurity. When we know that you are playing politics with actually putting an end to this regrettable, avoidable, and painful loss of lives.
The IMN was prescribed the same day the federal government secured the court order. It was IPOP, and then yes. IMN was prescribed, I think, 4 days after the court order, and it remains a big question why the federal government is stalling on gazetting this particular one. But I'd like us to look at the dynamics of insecurity in the year. It would appear that it moved from what we know as proper terrorism, called the Boko Haram swap, to banditry, because except for an attack in January and then the recent bomb blast in Maiduguri, it's pretty much been an issue of bandit attack in northwestern Nigeria and kidnappings and the rest. Is that in a sense telling us that perhaps the military infrastructure did work in fighting insurgency and terrorism, and perhaps it's just a new challenge that they're battling with?
Before I respond to that, let me quickly say something on what you started with, and that's the issue of calling bandits terrorists and not. I think we sometimes contribute to the problems and the challenges we have in facing and fighting these ills in our society. I would not know what we expect the gazetting would do that addressing them as bandits now want to do. I don't want to go into the semantics, but I tell you, from the day the government came out, Mr. President already called bandits terrorists. After the court order, he announced that they are now terrorists and the military will deal with them as terrorists. That was everywhere. The military chiefs also came out to say, the court agreeing that these guys are terrorists will help in fighting banditry. Whether you see it that way or not, I want to tell you that since November till now, the effort to rid the northwest of banditry has gained momentum. I am for giving credit where there is, so that we can condemn where we need to. I want you to take a good look at the weeks from November. We don't have the kind of haulaging of pupils and people we had all through the year.
What exactly changed?
What changed was the fact that now, what we've been clamoring for, stop treating these people with kids' glove. These are criminals.
But if that is the case, why is government stalling in this gazetting? Because when you talk about gazetting, he talked about the fact that this court order has a timeline. And the approach of the military also needs some element of legal backing in the onslaught against this
there is a court pronouncement. When it will expire is a debate for another day. What has been done with it is what we should look at. The government needs to move a step further. You see, it took them so long to even approach the court. It took them like forever. Eventually they did.
Are you not concerned about the track record?
I am worried, and that's why I'm saying
there are two organizations that have been proscribed in this country. It didn't take this long.
I see that as part of the politics we play. Look, the truth of the matter is, we now have a clear direction. These guys are terrorists. I'm more interested in that. Deal with them as terrorists. And I've seen footages of the military moving in and even have to apologize in some aspects that, look, civilian people were hurt in the... That is how to fight terrorism. And that is what Tucano jets are now being deployed against these bandits. These are things that were not done before now. That is my own interest. Now we have a situation where one of the most notable bandit warlord is now calling for a truce, because now we have a situation whereby they are being picked. What we should be saying now is, let us sustain this push. We must avoid anything politics that will lead to a deviation from this path. That is one. Having said that, on the issue of banditry, what changed in the northeast?
Northeast.
The truth is, we've been saying this before. I'm glad the maker is here. That if we continue to remove or separate banditry in the northwest from insurgency in the northeast, we are not ready to fight violence in Nigeria. Do you know? Have you asked yourself why there are no serious banditry in the northeast? Because there is nothing to loot. Yeah, that's the truth. There is nothing to loot there. These guys are no fools. These are coordinated criminals. There is nothing to loot in the northeast because of the ongoing war of occupation, insurgency. Now, the insurgents need economic support to continue to wage that senseless war. The bandits, the people who call bandits in the northwest, in part of north central, are actually, in my very informed opinion, an appendage of the warlords in the northeast. Most of the proceeds from these criminal activities in these other zones are used to fund the criminal activities going on in the northeast. Now that there is a clampdown, look at it, because the Tucano jets came, the military got better organized, there was less criminalities or less attacks in the northeast, so to speak. They were doing hit and run all the while, all through this year, until the Maiduguri bombing and the one earlier in the year. Now, what we must not lose sight of is, if we move all our military strength towards the northwest and we reduce what we are doing here, they will come up. Because the moment they run away from the northwest, they are moving towards the northeast. It is those three sets of people are involved in banditry in the northwest. Insurgents who fled their own group and want to live a better life, and they have the guns, they have the ammunition, they have the men. They want to now turn it to proper criminality, stealing to become big men. That's one set of people. The other set of people are insurgents still working for some warlords in the northwest, supplying money and goods for the war to continue. And the third group are stray criminals who were involved in armed robbery in Kano, Kaduna, Kogi, Abuja before now, but have some knowledge of banditry earlier. They realize that banditry has become some form of very lucrative business. They went back in that direction to be part of the looting and killing. These are the three categories of people involved in the northwest, and you cannot divorce any one of them, especially when it comes to how they get armed from what is going on in the northeast. So it is the ability to curtail both at the same time that will rid Nigeria of violence.
And it's very important that we begin to look at clamping down on this development as we enter a new year 2022, which is a pre-election year. The implication of insecurity on a major election is huge. INEC already talked about some 305 billion naira. We don't want that to go down to drain. But another issue I'd like us to look at, because of time, is what seems to have become a commonplace in Nigeria, the issue of prison break. Over 5,000 inmates escaped from Nigerian jails in 1 year. And there have been at least 13 other jailbreaks since October 2020, an aftermath of the NSAS prison break in Edo State. So in April 4th this year, gunmen attacked a correctional center in Owerri, freeing 1,844 inmates. We are told that just about 84 of those inmates were returned. In July, 4 inmates escaped from just maximum prison. In September, armed men attacked a prison facility in Kaba. 240 inmates were freed. In October, just at our backyard here in Ibadan, 837 inmates escaped from that facility. Only about 262 were recaptured. And the latest one will be in November, when a jailbreak occurred on Sunday when gunmen stormed the medium security custodial center in Jos. You begin to look at why this has become a commonplace. I mean, why is there such a back-to-back effect to it? Its implication is also huge on insecurity, because these are criminals set loose and sent back to the streets. They don't have any jobs precisely to go back to except crime, as it were. Do you think that this is a fallout of some of the things we discussed earlier, or just a loose end somewhere in our security infrastructure?
Yeah, I'll go with the second point. You know, the loose ends in the security infrastructure, you know, which was the point I tried to tie up concerning declaring these people as terrorists. Because if you declare them as terrorists and you gazette it, it makes it a global issue. It's not only Nigeria tackling them, it's a global thing. You've heard of how EFCC arrested a number of people at Kano Airport, Abuja Airport, with thousands of ATM cards. And remember, United Arab Emirates told us that they are Bureau de Change agents who are helping Boko Haram. You know, what are these people doing with these ATM cards? It's money laundering. You know, but if you make it terrorism, you know what happens? It makes it a bigger penalty than money laundering, which is just 7 years. That is one side. Now, added to it, people have now become emboldened, you know, in this criminal enterprise, breaking jails and all that. And we do know that more, you know, our jails, I mean, the correctional centers, as they are called now, they need to be upgraded. A lot of them need to be upgraded, or some, I could suggest that some could be shut down, you know, while some are expanded and upgraded, you know, so that very dangerous elements, you know, terrorism, convicts and suspects, you know, those on death row, those on for armed robbery and some of those dangerous crimes, you know, are put in places where they can be effectively monitored and checked. Yes, you say jailbreaks are a global phenomenon. It's a global problem. It's not just in Nigeria that you recorded jailbreaks this year. But you need to continue making efforts to ensure that, one, we reduce the population of awaiting trial men in prisons. Those who should not be there. You know, you can look for other non-custodial, you know, means of making them to face the law, so that when you reduce this number, then you don't have that sociological effect, you know, that link between people maybe just caught for, you know, trading on the streets illegally, and hardened criminals, terrorists, you know, who want to put these people to.
Unfortunately, many of them come back from prisons more hardened, and
that's what I'm saying,
and more criminally minded.
That's what I'm saying. Since you say it's correctional centers, I think we should go beyond just having correctional centers to also having non-custodial. You know, the Lagos State government has led the way in that, whereby, you know,
community
people,
services.
Yes, community services. They cut grass, they clear gutters and things. So it's not just everybody you just pick for an offense. You go and throw, you know, in a correctional center, so that you can effectively monitor these.
You know, a guy was recently released from the DSS custody just last night. He spent 6 months there, you know, and he was arrested on the basis that he was, what's this guy's name now? This guy who's in Benin.
Sunday Ademo.
Sunday was herbalist. And the guy said he has even never met the guy before. I mean, 6 months in custody. But I'd like us to consider the fact that more money has been earmarked to our prisons in the past 3 years than at any other time in Nigeria's history. And yet, we still have overcrowding, we have dilapidating structures. There's the issue of awaiting trial, which is now risen to about 70%. The Interior Minister did say that some 3,000 facilities will be built. But what do you consider to be a short-term, you know, solution approach to this challenge?
If we understand the enormity of the problem, then we would understand. We also understand the need for very spontaneous action. That's the short-term solution. We must take action. I met a group of guys in Oshodi about a week ago. I was working on a story. I met them, and I got talking with them. And I realized that they've been out there on the railway for 4 years, 5 years. And none of them is 28. And they've been out there for not less than 4 years. And I asked, how did you get here? They met in prison. They met in prison, probably in their 15, 16 prison. I don't see what business they have going there. They should be in remand homes, some form of boys' home for whatever offense. But they met in prison. And the one went to prison for street. He was arrested by Kai for street trading here in Lagos. Another one was arrested for another offense. And now they are out there. I don't need to tell you that they are criminals. They are hardened more than how they were before they went to prison. That's some of the effect of what we're doing. But be that as it may, talking about jailbreaks, I want to tell you that for every jailbreak, majority of those who escape are just opportuned to escape. There are targets.
Yes, oh sure.
There are targets.
That's the fact.
None of those jailbreak happened randomly.
Random.
None.
No.
There are targets. Some people needed to be freed by some people,
yeah.
and they came for them. Others benefited.
Yeah.
How? I saw a video clip of bandits somewhere in Zamfara, or I'm not too sure whether it's Kaduna or Zamfara. I can understand a little of Hausa, so I understand what they're saying. They were celebrating the freedom of one of their leaders from Edo prison.
Wow.
From Benin.
Wow.
So they just took advantage. They took advantage of the NSAS protest.
I think so. They went all the way from their base to that prison in Edo State, planned and executed the freedom of just one of their own bosses. And you know the number of people that escaped from that place that day? So
Over 2,000.
Those are beneficiaries of a planned jailbreak. The one in Oyo too, we've had some criminals somewhere celebrating the return of certain warlords within and outside the Southwest. That is to tell you the enormity of the planning, the intentions that goes into jailbreaks. Now, how do we stop jailbreaks? You nailed it. And the maker also went the right way. If we don't separate hardened criminals from people who merely want to correct, we'll be putting the entire correctional sector
Under a lot of
danger.
pressure.
Now, while escaping, I've heard of the story of one of the returnees. I think he's in Calabar prison, another jailbreak. This guy returned voluntarily. And the journalist asked him, why did they return? He said, while they escaped, some criminals took about 8 of them along with them. That you don't have where you go to now, follow us. And when they got to their base, realized that the kind of crimes those ones commit, he has never even dreamt of it in his life. So he found his way back there. He's better here because he said he was thinking that one day they will go out to rob and he will get killed. Then he has less than 4 years to go here. That is better for. Those are the kind of things that happen. So the people they went with, he said about 8 or 7 of them, only him returned. 7 people are being trained to be killers, who were either not killers before. So these are the implications of these things that just happen, and we think, well, it happens, we come up with a list. We are looking for 2,000 people. If you see them anywhere, please return. As if they are items that you just return. As if there are people willing to. We must understand the fact that some people have no business being in these correctionals. They are jail houses. Whatever new name you have given them is fine. They are packaging it, but these are jail houses. If somebody is caught for street trading, for crossing the express, and there are no other ways of correcting such than lumping them with people awaiting trial for murder, for armed robbery, for terrorism. So until we separate, correctional facilities are everywhere all over the world. We have some of our people in government and in authorities who visit these places. Are they going to tell me that all these R. Kelly and co. are being lumped with known murderers in the United States or in the United Kingdom? We see Nigerians who have been to jail for card fraud. I have one of them back in the society in 10 years. And he's as fresh as ever when he came back. And he's now all over social media preaching repentance. And that's how it should be. And I saw him at an event, and the musician who had waxed not less than 6 albums for him before now was hailing him, and he refused to stand up and go and spend money. The journalist in me went to him. Edmond, this is unlike you. He said, sit down, Daddy. And for the next 1 hour, he was lecturing me on how these musicians contribute to the crime being committed by Nigerians abroad. That if I stand up now and spend 500,000 naira, there's somebody here who knows me in UK. We say, I wish work is he doing that he can spend. He wants to do the same. Then tomorrow he'll be arrested for criminality.
And a lot also has to do to revamp our criminal, our justice system.
Yes,
I mean, I've had the privilege to cover, this parade by police, which is illegal, by the way. And then, police will tell you that these guys, are arrested for armed robbery or for ritual killings. And then you go to the guy and the guy say, I absolutely don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I was in the club drinking. There are lots of mix-up.
The security agencies need to be reformed.
My mom retired from the Nigerian prisons, and she sits us down and tells us stories. You will hear amazing stories of people who have no business to be in prison, just rotting away. We're taking a look at the events that shaped 2021. 2nd June 2021, Twitter removed one of President Buhari's tweets, temporarily suspended his his account rather. 2 days after, the Minister of Information and Culture announced that Twitter's operations in Nigeria will be suspended indefinitely, arguing that the company engages in activities that are capable of undermining Nigeria's corporate existence. The next day, under directives issued pursuant to the suspension, Twitter was blocked by all internet service providers in the country. And it was just at the time where I was planning to, build my Twitter account and increase the followers. Fortunately, you need a VPN to bypass that order.
And that's even risky.
And that's very risky because, that can open you to a lot of internet fraud, as it were. But come to think about it, this is December 20... So what's the date again? 28. And the last we heard some 2 months ago was the president. I think the last time the president spoke publicly, he was saying that the days of Twitter ban was over and that they had already given Twitter their expectation, but we still haven't heard anything about it. However, it will go down in history that this happened only a few days after Twitter dared to suspend the president's account. What does that mean to you?
Well, you see, I followed the Twitter story with caution. Followed with serious caution because for me there were two things in it. One, there was the fear of a regime that could become quite high-handed on the media if we encourage that particular action too much. On the other hand, however, I see a regime that wants to send a very clear message to the world that our sovereignty will not be toyed with. Today, I read stories that Twitter and others will pay tax to Nigeria. I am glad. Today, I read stories that Twitter and others will have to operate in Nigeria under certain conditions and prescriptions peculiar to Nigeria. I am elated. And these are fallouts of that face-off. So, for me, we find outcomes. But the president ought to or should have come into these needs through another means, not waiting until he was personally affected. It sent out the wrong signal.
It's a timing for me because Twitter has been here for long.
All along.
It also,
and then not until when you had issue.
Your account was suspended.
For me, that was not too tidy. But all the things that followed that were things that were ordinarily waiting to happen. These foreign organizations cannot just operate out of their own free will in our own country. It's not happening in the same way abroad.
That's right.
We needed to benefit from their successes. Do you know the number of Nigerians, millions of Nigerians, daily spending money on Twitter? So what are our own benefits as a nation, as an entity too? Taxes they weren't paying. They were opening offices in nearby Ghana. They were opening stations in nearby Uganda. They ignore Nigeria, where the bulk of the money is coming from, because they realize that they will spend more here and they can bypass this thing in other places. No, if you must do business here, you must be subjected to our own laws and dictates. and I'm glad it happened. How it happened may call for some question, but I'm glad it happened. And I'm surprised that up till now, the presidency or the federal government, as it were, is yet to end that dilemma. It's always good to quit the floor when the ovation
is loudest.
Is very high.
Yes, you're right.
The ovation
But
is,
I also
is
now
gradually going down.
Okay.
And if they wait until it dims totally, whatever gains we made out of this will be rubbished.
I also don't expect them now to beg Twitter to come back, because they have made their stance known. They have made their demands. Perhaps, you know, the most diplomatic thing, no, not diplomatic, I mean, the most that will enhance national pride, so to speak, will be to await Twitter to, you know, accord and bow to federal government stance. But beyond all of this, I'm looking at some other issues here that are very pivotal, which would be, consider, for instance, a situation where we're talking about the economic implication of this, particularly on young Nigerians.
Yeah,
you know.
we've lost over $1 billion. This is a government that's been borrowing left, right, and center. And then a veritable source of revenue, you have blocked it because of the ego of the president and some people like Alhaji Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information, who think that they know better than Nigerians about how to manage communication. But let me tell you something. They should unblock Twitter today. Because you know what? All they are saying about these companies paying tax and all that, it just shows how naive many of them are. They are not, you see, they are not in tune with global best practices. I, Emeka Madagu, sitting at this table, as far back as early 2019, I raised an issue on this table, on another program, that the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, at a meeting in Sri Lanka, said that countries should now begin to charge a digital tax from these companies, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. I said this far back, that we ought to, because the European Union imposed such a tax. And some days ago, you know, when some government official announced that, oh, they'll be charging a tax, it was just laughable. Because why? Of course, when you're doing business, it's expected that you will pay charges. It's expected you will charge your clients. You understand? So if you have to pay, I mean, taxes will be deducted. For instance, if you are conversant with all the taxes will be deducted at source. If Google is paying you, for instance, Google AdSense, they will deduct taxes at source before, and then remove their own commission before paying you publishers' earnings. You understand? So that's not a problem. Saying that Facebook will be paying tax, oh, come on, it's laughable, because it's only to be expected.
Let me hold you for a minute to take Judge's call from Ikeja. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Nifemi, and greetings to your guests as well.
Yes, good morning.
Nifemi, I am in agreement with the submission of Mr. Madunagu in the area of security. He pointed out, he gave several reasons why he believes that the government is not doing enough on security out of unwillingness, not because it is not able to. I give it to the government. They are making progress in infrastructural development. We can see roads, we can see bridges, we can see. But when there is insecurity in the land, who is going to use those facilities? People have to be able to come out to use those facilities. Otherwise, they become useless. You see a country where a cleric is openly canvassing the cause of terrorists, and nobody is arresting him. Nobody is calling him to question him. He just goes about telling people the need to support terrorists. That's the picture I get. And then the government is not even doing anything about that. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The military, they are always saying that they are here to receive a command to do certain things to tackle one insecurity or the other. That is to say that it is not the means they don't have. It is the command. So that is where issues come up about insecurity. I do not know why. I really do not know why, because the president came on three principles. One of them is security. He told us. I supported him because I knew he promised he was going to do that. but it is overshadowing every other thing that he has achieved. I think those who work with him should please advise him to take security more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for your contribution. You know, I was speaking with some members of the National Film and Video Censors Board yesterday, and we're talking about how things have moved all the way from traditional to digital platforms. So there's the over-the-top streaming services, which has literally taken over the media space. So there's a thin line between, it's not just about taxing them. There's also the need to regulate them, which is very difficult. It's a very difficult conversation to have.
No.
However,
No, I don't
if we
agree.
also understand how the much impact that these platforms are having, they're even more relevant than some governments.
No, even
than the mainstream
You see,
media.
when we look at, there was a time there was this bill talking about regulation of
social media.
and all we saw there was an
gagging the
attempt
media
to
space.
gag the media. We threw away the baby with the bathwater. Now we are the issue of fake news, the issue of what happened in Lagos with NSAS are examples of things we could have avoided if we had scrutinized that bill and select that which is good and discard the. You see, I said it. I told you I followed the whole thing cautiously because we were in between the devil and the red. I mean, and the deep blue sea. If we hail these moves too much, we may end up with dictatorship. If we oppose it outrightly, we will open our flanks to things that ought not to be happening.
There's also a trust deficit. I mean,
That is-
trusting government to be able to. But just hold on a minute. Ibrahim has called in from Kaduna. Good morning, Ibrahim.
Hello, good morning, sir. Good morning to your two guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Ibrahim calling from Kaduna.
Please go ahead.
In fact, your two guys have already shaped all the event. At least touch some highlights of the event that go through hard year. Thank you. One thing that I must take seriously is the issue of security, because it's the number one in every person's life. Because security, without security, there is nothing that will stand still. So thank you very much for this call. You see, one thing again is this: as far as government is trying his best, we as people, we also try to play our own role in shaping the country and society and indeed our economy, so that it will be for a better Nigeria tomorrow. You see, one thing I say, all those criminals that we know that we are calling them all everything. No, they all know, they all come from us. They are from us because we know them. It is time for us to call them their real name now. And infrastructure, this is one thing I also give for this government. Because for how many years now? For the past 50 years, let me say so, there is no any infrastructure to show. This government has come out to say this. That will give them that, will give them that glory. And then the issue of tax that we all that is just disqualifying claiming. The issue of tax, I can tell you from today, is only civil servants that are paying the correct tax. Am I lying? Is it true of us?
It's not true.
Civil servants are those that pay the real tax. Now, how can you tell me that all those digital networks? So, since all this while that these people are here in this country, they are not paying tax, it is now that we're able to know that. So, thank God for doing this, because that event that happened that made them to suspect them and make them to the food they pay now, it's a good thing as well. If government are able to go deep to bring out something like this out, we are going to have a good Nigeria in the future. So your two guys there, I also give them a kudos because they are touching what.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim, for
Nigeria
your contribution on the program. When President Buhari's tweet was suspended, I also was asking a few questions because I remember that having followed the IPOP leader's tweets for a while, I wondered why his tweets were not pulled down. But I found out subsequently that there's a mechanism to these things. If you tweet something and it is not reported, I mean, you might be able to bypass the system. So I'm thinking that perhaps instead of totally throwing these platforms out, it's about sitting down with them and ensuring that they don't operate in such a way that infringes with the sovereignty of the country.
There are a lot of things a lot of problems that can be solved through back channel dialogue. I'm sorry. It's not everything you come out in the open. You give pronouncements, you give laws. It's not every time you swing the hammer. You go through different processes. Nigeria needs money. There's no doubt about that. So if you decide to charge a digital tax, all well and good. If you decide to charge VAT on digital operations, all well and good. That is why you are a sovereign entity. It is okay. But you know what? Go again and look at your existing trade agreements with countries. You saw what happened with the United Arab Emirates recently about ESLOS. These are some of the things impeding our economic growth. We just happily signed agreements without looking at the implications, without looking at how these things would affect our economy, and we're impinging on our sovereignty. So you see, the point is this. Just like Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, lectured the CBN governor. He said on the issue of cryptocurrencies, proceed with knowledge. Don't go out fighting the young people. These young guys are full of so much energy. They want to, they want to express their boundless energy, their creativity. But you see, if you just do everything, go to court, you slam them, you are quick to stop cryptocurrencies, but you are now slow to declare bandits as terrorists. Come on, you are fighting the future generation. These debts you are piling up today is this younger generation that will pay it. So what you got to do is this: take advantage of the creativity, the soft power that Nigeria has, entertainment and the rest of them, and find a way to reach out to all these digital networks.
Let's take this.
You see, you know what? If people can, like you talk about trust deficit, if people can believe the government, you see, you don't need to be singing fake news and all these things. The people themselves will carry the gospel.
Let's take this conversation to Abia State. Mazi Okorafo, good morning.
Morning, my brother. There are so many things that shape this country, this 2051. Look, this issue of borrowing, there is nothing wrong, but of borrowing. Let states and local government enhance their natural resources. It will help us, at least the government pays for 1,000 jobs in all the local. What happened? Nothing has happened. So the area the people look inward, the better for us. Insurgency or terrorism cannot stop. As long as the authority concerned, they just play militarily with all those corporates. And the area we make sure stand on our toes and say that anybody caught, whether the terrorists in one form or another, it should be brought to the book. That is, but as long as we continue pampering them, gentlemen, let us not play games. You cannot stop terrorism in this country. As long as Nigeria is concerned, as long as unemployment is still going on, people go inside the bush, collect money, and come back and just revive themselves and revive their environment just for their own the betterment and the detriment of the masses. We cannot stop terrorism. Let us face reality. Only God in heaven will help us. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. God bless you.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. We're running off now. We don't have enough time to talk about NSAS. But what we have noticed is the fact that you look at what happened at the toll gate earlier in the year, the NSAS memorial, which also featured some level of police brutality. June 12th, certain people came out for peaceful protest. They were tear gassed and some of them arrested. You also would see how young people, why they would interpret the Twitter ban the way they have interpreted it, because it was the platform that gave them, it was the platform where they could mobilize themselves, united to speak against what they consider to be wrong. And I think that's just the beauty of democracy. If people cannot gather peacefully to protest, then we should call it something else. That's not democracy.
Yeah, it's the beauty of democracy, at the same time the danger of democracy. You see, I must tell you,
there's civil disobedience even in the finest democracy in the world. The responsibility to police it and ensure that it doesn't go beyond and become violent lies with the government and its security infrastructure.
The same country that has not been able to end insurgents, the same country you and I agree we lack the manpower, enough manpower in the security sector. Come, we must look at our peculiarities. What happened in Lagos, to me, should warn us that inasmuch as we do not want the police to be brutal unnecessarily, we must stop rising against minimal force. If minimal force was not condemned and it was applied when necessary in Lagos, we will not have that carnage we have.
Is there provision for minimal force? The question I want to ask is,
the issue is
in the face of a riot,
yes,
you go there with live ammunition.
Let me ask you a question. Is it still a riot when you find young men with guns, with machetes?
Who sent them?
It's not. Look,
those were not the NSAS protesters.
Those were protesters. Those were on the streets. I was a victim. No. Hello, I'm not telling who sent them. Who sent them?
Those were the people.
On that day, I was driving. Listen.
Those were the people with the intent to hijack the process.
Well, where were they?
Hold on.
Were they not on the streets?
Don't forget how well organized this protest was.
At Lekki,
they were packing the refuse.
At Lekki,
they were providing. Yes.
Let's face it. It's a national issue, and we must be careful the way we address it. At Lekki, very peaceful. Those who gathered around the Keja, very peaceful. Same moment, same day, some of us had to drive on the Ikorodu road. People were robbed at Ketu. It was the same day.
People were taking advantage.
Good. That is exactly what I was saying. For 2 days, they took advantage.
Yes.
The next day after that day, I was robbed at Ipakodo towards Ikorodu. My laptop.
I was robbed as well. But I wasn't robbed by
you were not robbed at
unfortunately,
because you didn't go there. Now the government saw that, look, while these gatherings were going on peacefully in some places, criminalities were happening in other places. We needed to put an end to this. I felt that the NSAS protester made their point beautifully.
We have to go now.
If they had stopped, so that we'll stop the criminalities, we won't be talking about this incident today. There was need for government to clamp down on criminalities, and no government will watch why that happened.
I'm going to give Good Luck 1 minute from Kaduna. You have just 60 seconds. Please go ahead. Oh my, your TV volume is up. Can you turn it down? Good luck. Gentlemen, we have to go. It's a good place to leave it. This conversation is on. There's a white paper to that effect. There is what the panel said. There's what the state government said.
And you see the answers brought better conditions, better pay for the police.
Even for the police.
The good part
but
of
I think that history is there to relieve what truly transpired.
Yeah, of course.
And some of us
who sent who?
And some of us
who sent the protesters.
Some of us who live the realities also have
who sent those protesters and so why are you now saying some people sent others?
Dare is assistant
they were on the street
with the Nation newspaper. Emeka Madumogo, journalists. All of us are journalists. We're just having a conversation here. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again tomorrow, and compliments of the